Good morning. Thanks for joining me. My name is Danielle Sloan with Higher Level. Today we're going to be talking about reporting in iSolved. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, you all should be able to see my screen now. So first we're just going to go over some commonly used reports. So we're going to navigate to reporting and report archive. So up top, you're going to be able to see if you have multiple legal companies that you can select between the two to see those separate reports. Or if you have several pay groups, you also have those sorts up top. So you always want to be sure that you're on the correct company and pay group of the reports that you're wanting to view. Then you can sort by year and you'll hit filter. And then you'll see your list of payrolls that have been processed for that year. So you can see, I'm going to filter to 2020 here. If one says void, that means the payroll's been voided. Regular payroll, special payroll is like a one-off payroll that has been ran. So then you will have your run number, your period begin and end date. The run date is the date that you would process it, and of course your pay date. It also gives you if it was the last pay of the month, the quarter of the year, or a new fiscal year. So our most common reports are Payroll Summary, of course. So once you're highlighted on your report, you're going to view report for it to open up as a PDF in a separate window, or download the report if you want to download it to your computer. So once you view your report, you can see it breaks it down by checks and direct deposits, your different liabilities, tax liabilities, third-party checks, and then the payroll billing is your invoice. And then here, total ACH debit will give you the amount that will be impounded, gives you your impound date and your total payroll cost. Breaks it down by the different types of checks, gives you some more details on employee counts. The next page goes into more detail of your tax liabilities. It gives you current, month to date, quarter to date, and year to date. Here's the employer tax expenses. And then it also lists out all your tax IDs for the different states or tax agencies. It also gives you a breakdown of your earnings. Again, current, month to date, quarter to date, and year to date. So your earnings, memo calcs, and deductions. So that is your payroll summary. Payroll register. So we have payroll register and we have current payroll register. Payroll register will view first. The difference is our payroll register shows year-to-date amounts and does not include employer portion of taxes. It also lists out more detailed information on the employee. So the columns are still the same: earnings, deductions, taxes, but you can see we have our year-to-date columns here. current payroll register. Here you can see we have employer taxes listed now, but we still have our earnings, taxes, and deductions columns. Now this one is broken out by department. So you can see there's several listed in their page break. So we can sort these by organization type, so division, location, department, and then also alphabetically. You can let your account manager know if you need a different view for your current payroll register. Check register is going to be a list of your checks. So give you your check type, your check number, and the amount. Also have a deduction and a direct deposit register, which of course list out your deductions and your direct deposits. Checks is going to be the actual check. So your check register is the list. Checks is going to be the actual checks. Garnishment checks by payee, that's going to be your garnishment checks. Payroll invoice, of course, we know it's an important one. So this is going to give you a breakdown of your billing. So you have your units, your rate, or if it's a flat amount. Retirement report is going to be your 401k report. So this will list the employee's name, social, their hire date, then their plan eligible wages, and then any match or employee contribution that is listed. So the contribution column is what is set up in the employee's profile. And then of course it lists current, month to date, quarter to date, and year to date amounts. The second page will give you your totals at the bottom. So those are our most commonly used. Another one that is commonly used is a labor distribution or labor allocation detail. So this is going to be your payroll broken out by your labor distributions that you have allocated. If you need a report and that you do not see in your package every time, this is customizable. We can add reports to generate each time with each payroll. So if you need to see something every payroll or once a quarter, the last payroll of the month, at the end of the year, we can configure those and have those scheduled to be in your package. So you're not having to request that every time. So then I want to move on to our return archive. So this is where all of your tax return documents are going to live. So under reporting and return archive should be the last one in your list. Here you're going to be able to sort by your year, your period, so quarter or month, and then your type. So either federal or your states. Just remember, you always have to hit this filter button to apply your changes. So I'm going to show you a screenshot of what this list would look like. So here you can see for Q4 2020, we have listed out all of the states or the federal returns that this company was in. So you have one of two options. You can, over here on the blue hyperlink, hit View Report to open up that report in a PDF. Or you can select Multiple, or you can select All and hit View Selected Forms. And this is going to consolidate all of those into one PDF for you. So say you wanted all of Indiana, you would select all 4 of these boxes and then hit View Selected Forms. So again, with this, you can sort by your company up here at the top if you have multiple legal companies. Next, we're going to talk about our year-end report archive. So this is where you can find your W-2s and 1099s. So here, of course, there seems to be a lot of copies. Your W-3 is in here. The W-2 pressure seal is the report you would want to run if you want all 4 copies on one page like we would print out and send. Any one of these will just be 1 sheet per employee. So 2 employees per page. You can also sort by the year at the top and by your company. So you can, of course, hit View Report or Download Report. So then next, we're going to talk about our report writer. So one of the fun things about iSolved is that we can customize and build almost any report that you can think of. So again, under Reporting and Report Writer. Here's where we can build out reports. So I'm going to go over a few report types and what they do first, so we kind of have some knowledge on that. So this document is out on the university, and it's a quick reference guide for the different report types. So sometimes when you get in there to build a report, you're not really sure exactly which one to choose. So this document is going to walk us through and kind of give us a guideline of what each one of those does. So the first one, we can see Payroll Employee Summary Report. This is going to give you 1 row per employee, and then it gives you a description of exactly what it displays. Also, another important thing is the availability here. So this report is available to run it by payroll run, but it is not available to be a date range. So if you're needing a report that you can run by a date range, you need to reference this guide and make sure that this has a yes in that column for that specific report type, because that's the one that you'll need to use if you need it to be a date range. And then the next one is across legals. So you've heard me talk about that drop down. If you have multiple legal companies, then you would need to make sure if you wanted to run it across legals, so to include all of them in a consolidated report, that this has a yes in that column also. So payroll check detail report, of course, 1 row per check. So it displays a single row of data for each check the employee has. So then some common filters, we'll get into filtering out the report when I show that screen, but these are some common filters that you would maybe want to not include someone who has a 0 net check. Date range reports, 1 row per check. It's going to contain multiple rows of data for each employee over that date range. If they do not have any checks, then they will appear on the report as blank. So that may be another one that you would want to filter out anyone who has a 0 check. So a date range summary report. Then we get into some HR reports. So some subcategories of our HR reports would be assets, awards, certificates, or disciplinary actions. Education, employee benefits, employee contacts, employee garnishments, employee I-9s, and the list goes on and on. So those are all sub-reports of the HR reports. You can see a lot of them, of course, are not by payroll run, but more by date range or across legals. So some more salary history reports or prior employment reports. So then we have another report type of time and attendance. So this is going to be for all of the iSolved time clients. So you have some that are by payroll run, some by pay date. We have time entry accumulators. So returns 1 row for each time entry of the employee by that accumulator. And we have labor allocation or labor expense. Then we have our general ledger reports by payroll or by date range. And then we also have check file, which allows users to create a payroll report that returns 1 row of data for each check that is generated in a payroll run. That also includes third-party checks, so not just payroll checks. So when you're building your report and you're not sure which report type, the report writer, report types quick reference guide on the university is what you'll want to reference. So here, when we add new, we can see we have a list of report types. Once you select and save your report type, you can see it's grayed out, that we cannot change it. So that's why you want to reference that guide to make sure that you're selecting the correct one. The report type also dictates what columns are available to choose from. So once you figure out which report type you need, you're going to title your report. You can change the font and the font size, the orientation of the report, and then this report group is going to be, if I select standard reports, then this report writer is going to be available for the standard reports group. So it's going to be available for you to run in your My Reports. You can add a description. One other thing to point out is if you are running a date range report, it did say that it will generate 1 row per employee or per check, depending on the report type that you're running. If you only want totals, if you want a summary, you want to be sure to check this box for totals only. You have some CSV options down here to choose your delimiter or your file extension if you're building out a CSV versus a PDF form. And then over here, you can choose your headers and footers. So the next step is to add your columns. So one of 2 ways. You can add your columns here. So here we have our field categories. So a large list of field categories. iSolved on the university has another quick reference guide for our field categories. So another chart that's going to explain which field categories and which report type that we chose that includes these field categories. So like I said, the report type you choose will dictate what field categories are available for you to choose from. So you want to make sure that your field category, so basically your column that you're wanting to pull in on your report, is available in the report type that you choose. So employee data gives you the categories that are available there. So another thing that gets a little confusing if you're not sure is accumulators versus parameters. So a lot of earnings, deductions, benefits, you'll see earnings accumulators or earnings parameters. So for the accumulators, they are figures, hours or dollars that are current, month to date, quarter to date, or year to date that is based on the client setup. So then parameters is going to be your per pay amounts. So this is going to be what you have scheduled in that employee's profile. So this is going to be the accumulator that shows up on the check. The parameters is what's going to be what you have scheduled per pay for that employee. So that's going to be the same for memos, deductions, benefits, accumulators versus parameters. So if you have any deductions that are in arrears, those balances will show. So then we have garnishments, we have our tax accumulators. Let's zoom out a little bit. So we have, we can pull in direct deposit information, leave accrual information, and then our benefits. So those are all under the payroll report types. The next section is our HR report types. So these were all the categories that were subcategories of HR. So all fields from the payroll summary reports are fields from sub-report field categories. And then all the information on the HR screens. So examples are assets, make, model, description, serial number. So any type of information that is in these fields, you can pull into your report. Next, we have our labor expense report. So here we can pull employee data and employee pay. Then you also have your check details, labor, job, tax information, and then your report parameters. So report parameters are going to be the output type, so PDF, Excel, CSV, and then your as of date are going to be available to pull in on that report for your report parameters. Here you have your categories for your allocation reports. Your date range, time and attendance. So this is just a nice guide. So you know what I need to pull in, so you know what field category to search under and what report type to use. So again, this is called the Report Writer Field Category Quick Reference Guide. This is available on the university. So you can choose your field category here, and then it gives you available data. So once, say I want to add the address, line 1, I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to move it over to my added columns. Here, once we highlight, we can move that category up or down in order. Some reports do have pre-populated, so based on your report type that you choose, you may have pre-populated data over here. say I did not want the division code, they don't have division set up, I would just move it back over to my list and it will take it off of my add columns. So this is one way to add columns. The second way, if you just go to edit columns, here we can also add new. So each tab you have to save. If I add new, I can search. So if I just search name, then I'm going to have a pre-populated list of different types of names or data that include name that I could pull in. So that search feature comes in handy. That way you don't have to select the field category specifically if you know what you're looking for. So let's say I wanted to add my HSA plan name. Here, heading 1 and heading 2, that just means there are going to be 2 rows. The first row is going to say HSA, and underneath that, it's going to say plan name. If you want it all on one, you can change it and put HSA down here and just remove that. So a little more in detail with calculated columns. I'm not going to talk in depth about that, but you can add columns together. If you need further training or assistance, of course, you can always reach out to one of the account managers and we'll be happy to walk you through how to do the calculated columns. But that's typically what we would use this hidden column for. If we needed the data to calculate, but we wanted to hide the column, you would use the hidden columns. You can put in a default value, your column position. So here again, it's rearranging the order. Your column width, so say my last name column isn't long enough to include someone's last name, maybe they have it hyphenated and they're long, then you can expand that column width to include that in there. Your format strings is going to be how you format that column. So maybe you need your date in a different format. You could select that here. Number, currency. And then you can also do true, false, true, blank, or blank, false. You can also align, so left, right, or center for that column. So then we move on to our report filters. So in my date range, say I don't want employees to show up that are terminated, or I don't want anybody with a 0 check to show up on my report. I would hit add new. So say I want only active employees to show on my report. I'm going to go to, let's see. Okay, I don't have an employment status column, so it's not going to let me filter by that. So we can filter our hire date column, say we want it to be anyone only hired in 2020. You can do your operator and then type in your value. So then you can also, so depending on your report type and what columns you have pulled in, that's when you can sort. So say I only want a department code, I could say it's in only these 2 departments, 4 departments. And then it's going to filter out your data. So then the next tab is going to be actually running your report. So you can build it, test it here, view it, go back, edit, test it. So you can select your company name, which payroll you want to run it for, and then your output type. So then you would generate your report. Once it generates, then you'll go to your report queue. Once you're in your report queue, your report will populate, and then you may have to hit refresh until your hyperlink and the view report shows up. So that is kind of an overview of Report Writer. You can build out as many reports as need be. So do we have any questions, anything that you want me to go back over? You guys can use the chat or the questions. So also, if you had a report and you were building it out by departments and you had several departments, you can always use this copy feature and then just go ahead and edit that one filter. So that's a nice tool also. We'll give it another minute or so if anybody has any questions. But if not, I appreciate you guys joining me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.